a nonprofit advocacy group for the St. Johns River.
And our mission is to help protect the river.
Hello, welcome once again to the St. Johns Riverkeeper show, the most exciting half hour on television, right, Shannon? Actually, it is going to be fairly exciting today because we won't be talking to you as much about some of these issues that are affecting the St. Johns. We will give you an update, but obviously sometimes that can be quite depressing when you hear of all the threats to the river. Fortunately, we have a group like Riverkeeper that's trying to address those threats. But today, we've got Shannon Blankenship, our outreach director, on the show with us today. Thanks for coming, Shannon.
Thanks for having me.
And Shannon will give you a little bit more information about some of the things we do in terms of outreach and how you can get involved. First, Shannon, though, before we get started, I always like to give folks out there that may not know who we are a little background information about our organization and what we do, and maybe you could help with that information.
Absolutely. So St. Johns Riverkeeper, as you may not know, is an environmental advocacy organization. We are a nonprofit, which means we are entirely supported through membership contributions, community support, and not directly through government programs and grants. So to distinguish for people who may not know between, say, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection or the St. Johns River Water Management District, St. Johns Riverkeeper speaks primarily as the voice of the river itself and not for the entire state or for the residents and citizens of the entire state. But when we come out about issues that may potentially harm the river, Lisa Reineman, the St. Johns Riverkeeper, speaks on behalf of the river itself so that the river has a voice in some of these critical issues that will end up impacting the St. Johns.
And that's great. And a lot of the things that we do are we actually represent the river's interests when these decisions are being made that affect the future. And we also hold regulatory agencies, our elected officials, and people polluting the river accountable to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do to help protect the river. A lot of times our regulatory agencies, unfortunately, are either understaffed or politics gets in the way of decisions, and that's our role really to push them, hold their feet to the fire, and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. We also, I think one of the things people don't know that much about us a lot of times is the education and outreach that we do, which I think is really exciting because that is a form of advocacy, of course, as well. We have to get people informed and engaged so that they understand the issues and they're involved in helping try to resolve the problems that affect the river. And that's one of the things that Shannon does. Shannon actually helps with the outreach. We also have an education director, though, as well, Jenny Busey, who does a lot with youth. And we can touch on that as well. But why don't you tell a little bit about what you do with Riverkeeper?
Sure. Well, I feel like, as most people can recognize, a staff of 6 alone really can't be out there doing all that the river needs in order to raise awareness for protection of the St. Johns. And so my job as outreach director is really to try and make our voice louder by telling more people in the community about what we do, about how important the St. Johns River is, how much we need to strive to protect the river and its resources. And so I will work with anyone in any capacity, whether it's through social media, whether it's through business partnerships, whether it's through events, to tell people about the St. Johns River, to try and show them why we need to care about it and protect it. And so I have the fortunate job of continuously being able to talk to people about the St. Johns and about the threats that currently it faces.
And one of the important things that Shannon does also is she empowers people with information about what they can do too to help protect the river. So we, for instance, this past year in the spring, we launched our we've had a river-friendly campaign for some time, but I guess we had a much larger program this spring, and that was a program to teach people about what they can do to be what we call river friendly, correct?
Yeah, March is really that critical time of year when individual actions within our own property, our own little footprint on this earth, impact the St. Johns River and whether or not we're going to see that algae bloom in the summer. And so it's critical at that time of year to educate people about how the plants in their yard, the fertilizers that they choose, the water that they put onto their property really is going to impact that algae bloom in the summer. And so all March long, all we do is try and speak to everyone in our community, in our watershed, about how they can really change the fate of the St. John's.
And actually, the River Friendly campaign is really an ongoing campaign, too. March is obviously a critical time in that early spring, but we have tons of information on our website. I'd really encourage you to go visit the website. Click on at the very top, there's a River Friendly link, and we have all kinds of information about what you can do in terms of water conservation, fertilizer, pesticides, also even energy conservation affects the river, believe it or not. There's all these different things that you can do. And also, one of the things, too, that we encourage people to do is just to get involved in the issues. And that's one of your jobs also, is to make sure that we're engaging people in this process.
Yeah, people have to know about the threats facing the St. Johns River, and then how they can specifically get involved in order to really, gain more support, to empower people in order to help us in these advocacy issues. We have several issues facing the St. John's where, if we don't have a vocal community supporting our perspective on protecting the river, then it's not going to go anywhere. Then the river will seriously face a lot of these challenging threats.
Well, one of the things I've always said is that we cannot expect our regulatory agencies or our elected officials to get the job done by themselves. That the public has to be engaged. We have to be involved in making sure that, one, we hold these folks that we entrust with our resources, our water resources, to do their jobs, to fulfill their obligations to protect it, but also we have to be involved and make sure they understand that that's something that's important to us. Our elected officials is a good example. We need to get people elected and in office, and they need to hear from us that this is important, protecting our resources, and we're willing to make the investment to make that happen.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things that Shannon does a lot of great outreach in the community. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the more recent outreach events that we have going on?
Sure. Well, hopefully you all were able to join us on July 6th at the Riverside Arts Market for the first annual River Ruckus this past month. River Ruckus was really an opportunity to bring all of the patrons that already attend the Riverside Arts Market every single Saturday, but actually encourage them to get in the water as well as just being there at the river. And so a host of events were set up throughout the day that would allow people to get their feet wet in some capacity, whether it was joining us in the flotilla led by First Coast Outfitters, whether it was having them come out and watch celebrities jump in the river during the celebrity jump, whether it was taking your first stand-up paddleboard lesson, or even just for kids making the fishing lure so that they can go out and learn how to fish in the St. John's. There were a plethora of ways that people could try and really engage in the St. John's River a little more than just showing up and looking at it, because it is a pretty view and the most, I think, amazing part of our downtown. But I think more importantly, the river is more than something to look at. It's a form of recreation for all of us in downtown Jacksonville and throughout the watershed. And so highlighting recreation is going to be really critical in moving forward in some of these enhanced and increased protections that we need for the St. John's.
Well, and I've always said that you have to get to know the river to really care about it and to be motivated to protect it. And I think the only way to do that is obviously to experience it. We have to get out there, use the river to explore the St. John's, and this was one way of kind of introducing people to that. One of the other folks that was there that helped us out was Freedom Boat Club, and they were doing free boat trips as well.
Absolutely.
And that was another way for people during that day to get out on the water, because we really want people out on the water using it, whether it be in a kayak or in a power boat.
Yeah.
But responsibly using the river and taking advantage of this tremendous resource, because as long as we take advantage of it and use it responsibly, we can benefit in so many ways from the St. John's.
Absolutely. There were a ton of really intriguing, interesting ways to highlight the St. John's at River Ruckus. Another really cool event that we had going on, Justin Riney of Expedition Florida 500 has been circumnavigating the state of Florida. He's going to be doing it for 365 days, 2013, and paddling 500 miles. And July 6th was actually the turning point where he went from doing the coastal journey and turned in, and now is going to be researching and exploring our inland waterways. And so the St. John's, the first coast here, was the first sort of turning point in that journey. And so not only did he come in on the at the head of the flotilla, but we had ways that a lot of people could experience stand-up paddleboarding here in the St. John's. Stand-up paddleboarding is such a wonderful way to get on our river, because it allows you to sort of feel the balance and feel how the river moves, to incorporate, you know, all of those fun, athletic, recreational type of capabilities, but then to really also, you know, be engaged with the river. You have to be in tune with what's going on in order to enjoy stand-up paddleboarding. So Justin Riney sort of showcased it, but then we had stand-up paddleboard lessons all night where people could get on the river and experience that form of recreation.
Well, and that was a great event that kind of highlighted, I think, too, how many partners that we have in the community that care about the St. John's, because you know, All Wet Sports was doing the stand-up paddleboard. We had Sweetwater Brewing Company, that's a big supporter of clean water, and we'll talk in a minute about their clean water, their Save Our Water campaign. We had Riverside Arts Market. I mean, obviously was a tremendous partner, and they have a stake in the health of the river being located right there on the St.
Absolutely.
John's. But all of these different partners, First Coast Outfitters that did the flotilla, Jumping Fish, who, if you're not familiar, I think we actually have talked to Jim, talked about this on the show before, but Jim Albiso from Jumping Fish, which is a nonprofit, they really encourage people to get out on the water and to use the river. And he has now completed, I think, 50 swims on the St. John's, some of them long distances, some of them shorter, but Jim's whole thing is that the river should be used and can be used as a recreational source. And getting in the water and swimming is one of the things Jim does to show that the river, while we have pollution problems, it's not dead, and it can be used for recreation. So I think that it was a great way to demonstrate also the partnerships and all of the people that really do care about the river. And that's one of the things I love about what Shannon does, is she gets to really work with and bring all these people together that care about the St. John's and want to help in some way. And if your business or organization ever wants to get involved and partner with us in some way, just give us a call and contact us, because we're always open to partnership ideas and opportunities. And we've done a lot of other partnerships recently too, like with the Aveda Salons is a perfect example.
Yeah, Aveda is such a unique company. Their goals and perspectives are really in line with ours as well. Their environmental ethic, their conservation, their sort of diligence with using natural products, recycled products, really sort of streamlines well with some of the values that we have here at St. John's Riverkeeper. And so for the entire month of April, Earth Month, Aveda salons throughout the Jacksonville area held individual fundraisers, whether it was a cut-a-thon, whether it was a litter cleanup campaign, a music concert, wine shows. There were tons of different types of ways that each salon had an individual impact on raising money in order to support the advocacy efforts that St. John's Riverkeeper is involved with. And so I think that's a great company and a great program and outreach tool that we were able to utilize, because, you know, as I said, as the staff of 6, we can't go out there and speak to the community all the time. And so having salons and people, you know, there sort of talking with their patrons about the cause, about the mission, about the issues, that was just a phenomenal outreach program for us, and big thanks to Aveda Salon for working with us that month.
And Aveda, I mean, like you said, the beauty of those partnerships is not only did they raise collectively $20,000 for our advocacy work, because as Shannon mentioned earlier, we are supported privately in the community from individuals, businesses, foundations. We don't receive government funding, so we rely on the support of businesses like Aveda. They raise $20,000, but then they also are, like you said, helping us get the word out. We don't have a big advertising budget, marketing budget to get the word out to the public. We rely on the grassroots efforts and the help of our partners, whether it be businesses or organizations, to help share that message with the community and get information out to them about the health of the river and what each of us can do. So that was a great partnership and a lot of fun too, because all these salons were kind of competing against each other to come up with the most creative ideas and raise the most money.
Yeah.
So I think they had a lot of fun as well.
They did. It's critical for us as an independent voice not to be supported by the government, not to be supported by corporations that would then turn around and be on the other side of our issues. So having business partners like Aveda and like Sweetwater Brewing Company working with us this month are really going to help us to be able to maintain that independent voice when threats come and face the St. Johns River. This month, from the 4th of July all the way through Labor Day, there are restaurants throughout the Jacksonville area that serve Sweetwater beer that are hanging paper fish all over the wall. So if you go and visit any restaurants in the Jacksonville Beach area, in the Riverside area, downtown, Fleming Island, Fernandina Beach, all of them, or several of them, are going to have these paper fish plastered all over the wall. And the idea is, from Sweetwater Brewing Company's philosophy, is that you need clean water in order to make tasty beer. And I think that's going to be true of so many businesses in our area. If we don't have clean water, then your businesses will essentially suffer. And so they've taken the step forward and decided that they actually want to fund advocacy work for clean water in order to protect their water resources that they need for brewing Sweetwater beer. And so this past weekend, we were able to have a really exciting way to get our members and community support to visit those restaurants that are working for us and hanging paper fish all over the wall. So we had our second annual Save Our Water Sweetwater Pub Crawl here in Riverside. Business supporters were O Brothers Pub, Grassroots Natural Market, Rain Dogs, which is a really fun new bar in 5 Points, Zen Cog, which is a local bicycle company. They sell bikes, they repair bikes, they'll do anything you need for your bike. And then we moved to Lola's, the burrito joint over there on King Street, and finished off at Dahlia's Poorhouse, which has an amazing tap selection there in the King Street district. So these are all restaurants that are helping to support the St. Johns River clean water advocacy because they realize the value in protecting clean water for their businesses in order to thrive and prosper. So it's just really great opportunities there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing, that when we partner with all these organizations, whether it be like we've had partnerships with the Cummer Museum this year, and we had partnerships with MOSH, and we've done a lot of educational programs with various organizations and Riverside Arts Market. I think that they all recognize, these businesses and organizations, the importance of clean water to our quality of life in Jacksonville and to our economic future here on the First Coast. Then that brings me into some of the issues that we're working on that really, I think, highlight that. One of those that we've talked about on the last show was the port dredging. And we talked about earlier recreating on the river, the importance of getting out and using it, the importance of clean water. Well, this is a perfect example that we need to make sure that whatever is done to the river in terms of dredging, that it's not going to have a big impact on its health. And so that's where Riverkeeper is also involved, and one of the messages that we're getting out to people is that we need to be involved in this process. We need to be involved as they're evaluating the proposal to deepen the river from 40 feet to 47 feet and make sure that those impacts are not going to be significant, are not going to cause long-term harm to the St. Johns, that then will affect our quality of life and our economy. I know In the short term, there's supposedly going to be some economic benefits from new jobs from the port. But in the long run, we have to look at what's best for our community. And one of the things that we know is best is that a clean and healthy river will sustain this community for generations to come. And that's important that we maintain that. It's such a huge asset and resource. We can't afford to jeopardize that for short-term economic gains or economic gains that may not materialize even after we dredge. And that's one thing we need to really make sure that we're making the right decision.
Yeah, you know, there is potential for job growth, but I think we need to know what jobs. We need to know how many jobs. There needs to be adequate study in looking at what are the real benefits of deepening the St. Johns River. And that's why I'm really, really proud that we're putting on this forum July 23rd at the Wyndham Downtown Riverwalk in Jacksonville, because it needs to be brought up. It needs to be put forth to the people to decide. Our tax dollars would be funding this project in a significant way, both federal and local. And so if we're going to be putting all of our tax dollars and funding into this project, I think we need to know what the benefits are, because we know a lot of the cost. There are a lot of costs on paper, but there are a lot of hidden costs. Hidden costs like, you know, enhanced recreation in our downtown. How can we really, truly try and bring about more recreation in our downtown Jacksonville if it's going to be a major hub for cargo terminal? I mean, those are sort of questions that I think that we should ask in our community, in our downtown Jacksonville, as what do we want from our river and what do we want to see in our river? And so you can talk more about some of the speakers at the forum, but I think we should all be engaged in asking these questions at this point before we're too set in stone on this project.
Well, and that's really one of our roles, I think, that kind of highlights the importance of Riverkeeper and the work that we do, is we want to make sure that all of the information is on the table, that we know all of the information. We have an accurate assessment of what the benefits potentially could be, and that we have an accurate assessment of what all of the costs are going to be and the potential impacts to the river, because this community needs to make an informed decision. And at this point, we feel like there's not enough information that's been presented to make an informed decision, frankly. That's why we have assembled a team of volunteer experts that are helping us to evaluate what's called the environmental impact statement that was released by the Army Corps of Engineers, that is taking a look at this dredging proposal. And we're having a forum, as Shannon mentioned, on July 23rd at the Wyndham Hotel in Jacksonville, down on the Riverwalk at 6 p.m. And you can learn more about this on our website. Please, I would encourage you to go to our website and learn more. We're going to have some great panelists that are going to participate. Dr. Quentin White, who's a biologist and the director of the Marine Science Research Institute at JU. We're going to have Dr. David Jaffe, who is from UNF, and he's going to be addressing some of the economic issues around this port dredging. And then we also have Dr. Kevin Bodge, who is a coastal engineer, who's going to help us understand some of the dynamics of dredging the river and what those impacts might be. And so we've got a great panelist, and then of course Lisa Reineman, the St. Johns Riverkeeper, will be there talking about some of our concerns at Riverkeeper. And so it's a great way to learn about this issue and to learn about some of the concerns that you may not hear from the other side, because I think, you know, obviously Jacksport, we don't have anything against Jacksport, certainly, but their interests are in supporting the economic benefits and touting the potential economic benefits that may come from this project. And we need to make sure that the environmental side of the story is told, and that the community has all of the facts that we can make an informed choice. And this is one way of doing that, is for us to put on this forum to give people more information and an opportunity to come and ask questions, because we'll have some experts that will be able to answer questions that people may have about what those potential impacts may be and how they may affect us and our community. And so I'd encourage everybody to come, because this is an important decision. I've even said, you know, Shannon, that these type of decisions like this are really important too, for us to have these conversations, because we really do need to weigh the pros and cons in our community about what is best for our river. You know, what is the best way to protect the river and to take advantage of it and utilize it for our benefit in a responsible way. And so I think this is a good conversation for us to have, because the river provides so many economic benefits and enhances our quality of life in so many ways that we need to be mindful of that and really take a look at all of that information when we're making decisions that could affect the future of the St. John's, and this is an important one, obviously.
Absolutely. I think if anyone says that this decision comes down to jobs versus environment, then I think it's misinformed, because it's really about looking at the St. John's River and what we want from our river and our tax dollars in downtown Jacksonville.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, this is something that's good. There's another issue that we've talked about, too, on the show that I think is important that kind of ties in with all this as well, is there's a project down in Ocala area. We've talked about this actually probably several times on the show. There's a billionaire from Canada who has come down, bought up a lot of land in Marion County and some of the surrounding counties, and he wants to have a cattle farm of over 15,000 head of cattle. That would be within miles of Silver Springs and the Silver River. And this is in the spring shed, which is the area that drains into the spring and into the river. And it is being, obviously another example of economic development that's going to benefit the county and the community. It's not going to actually provide that many jobs, but of course people are desperate in a lot of these counties for jobs. And yet what we're doing is we're putting economic expansion and development and a handful of jobs up against the future of one of our most, I guess you could say, one of the most famous springs in the world, actually, the Silver Springs, and one of our most threatened. And so this is another example of where we really need to consider the benefits of that spring and what it provides that community, because Silver Springs has for a long time been a tourist destination that has provided millions of dollars in revenue for the community of Ocala and the surrounding county. And we need to make sure that that continues to enhance that community in other ways, and we don't jeopardize that by putting a cattle farm that's going to create a ton of nutrients that are going to run into that river and use a lot of water from the aquifer to grow the grass that these cattle will need to eat.
And not only is this project so alarming and so destructive, but I think it speaks to the larger issue here of just the overconsumption of water that the St. Johns River Water Management District is allowing to happen in our state, when we have water advisories going out for when people can use water in their lawn at certain times, putting restrictions on personal use. We have lakes drying up. We have problems throughout the state with the amount of water we have, and yet at the same time that our springs are facing all of these threats, continue to issue consumptive use permits to use more and more water underground as if there's really no end. So I hope that this Adena Springs Ranch is really a red flag all over our state to to just bring about more change and highlight the protections that we need for these springs, because it's been studied and studied and studied, and if we continue to allow this decline, we only have a few years left, and there's really just going to be so much work that needs to be done in order to try and reclaim our springs and bring them back to looking like they once did.
Yeah, well, very well said. And I think that's something that I'd encourage you all to go to our website, learn more about. We've got a lot of information on the website, not only about the issue, but how you can get involved. We actually are going to potentially, we hope it doesn't come down to this, but potentially have to challenge this legally. And we're going to need your help and support to do that, so that we can make sure that Adena Springs Ranch or any other project like it doesn't cause any further harm to the Silver Springs or any of our other springs that are really impaired. We got just a couple minutes left. Do you want to tell a little bit about an update of any upcoming events and what's going on?
Sure. Well, I'm always trying to get more people between the ages of 21 and 44 involved in Rising Tides, our young professionals of St. John's Riverkeeper. So if you're not already friends with us on Facebook, Rising Tides or St. John's Riverkeeper, that's really going to be the best place to learn more of an update updated way of everything that we have going on. So I definitely encourage you to log on and learn more about us there and see some of our upcoming events.
Yeah, we've got some great things happening, and that is a great way to follow us is on Facebook. Shannon manages our social media, and she does a great job with it. So thank you, and thanks, Shannon, for being on the show today. And
Thank you.
Sharing
Thank you.
with everybody. I told you it's going to be much more exciting today. We're not talking as much about issues and talking about all the fun things that we do at St. John's Riverkeeper and how you can get involved. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next month.
Mission is to help protect the river